and welcome back to the Hotline. We are talking the British Grand Prix, and again, just like last year, what an absolute blast everyone had at the British Grand Prix. What an absolute exciting race. What didn't happen at Silverstone? There's a lot to talk about. Lando Norris injured. Yep, we'll be talking about that. Oscar Piastri's penalty, all around that. Nico Hulkenberg's finally his first podium after, 230 odd races, and Lando Norris's first win. Let's talk about it. Okay, first of all, let's talk about the injury, which I literally just learned about before starting to record it. There's the injury here. Lando Norris hit by a photographer. No, not on purpose. Here's the actual footage here. This photographer there. There's Lando there. Let's just pause it again. There's Lando. He just smacks him. Don't think he really means it. He says sorry, but Lando's holding the bridge of his nose. As you can see, he's probably in quite a lot of pain. I mean, not the worst then, but the photographer is really apologetic. But what are they doing? I mean, here's the thing, okay? What is the photographer? The photographer's up there at the top with obviously a McLaren guy dressed in McLaren. What's he doing up there? I know he's trying to get a photographer, but there's gates there for a reason. I know it happens all the time, but then he loses it. Lando's there trying to say hello to the fans. The photographer shouldn't be there. Let's be fair. And then he goes and smacks Lando. I don't quite know what caused the injury, if I'm honest. I mean, yeah, let's try and... Okay, so he comes down. Yeah, I mean, look at that. He proper smacks him. Look, donk. But it's not... I think he hit something else. Because it's there. He doesn't hit... The injury seems to be kind of like here. And it's a hit, and then he's whacked... Yeah. I think he hits the camera of the other photographer. Yeah, potentially. But Lando Norris, yeah, which is a bit of a shame. The stories made TalkSport. Suffers free injury after being struck in the face by the photographer. The classically broad British Grand Prix driver who's just won his first race, mastering the wet and chaotic conditions, is now injured. The celebrations were wild and a family affair post-race, but when he went back to enjoy it with the fans, he had to head back early. There he is. The McLaren driver went to the pit wall trophy to show his supporters, something that Lewis Hamilton has done, but he is approached by... but as he approached, the photographer fell and struck him on the face. The 25-year-old then made a U-turn, clearly in pain, with staff pointing to their noses to indicate the problem. Footage appeared to show part of the pit wall failing, which led to an individual slipping backwards and into Norris. I mean, it's sad that the pit wall failing, but once again, what are they doing up there? The Brit had finished his media duties for the day, and he was heading out to show his fans the trophy, which is lovely. Fans flooded the main straight. Norris not just a rising star, but it goes on. But yeah, I think this is not no more. That's Lando standing up. I mean, it's just, it's not a good look, is it? It's not a good look at all. Poor Lando. Yeah, and obviously there was the photo we saw with stirrups, etc. But I think he obviously still came out. I can tell that's fairly recent because he's got his cap on, unless, yeah. But there we go. So let's talk about now that's out of the way. Let's talk about his home Grand Prix win, and what a win it was. Yes, it may have been gifted by Oscar Piastri's penalty, which, yes, we will talk about it in a sec. So, but he won. Now, he was, I think, yes, he didn't get a pole position. He started third, but he was the faster driver on the day. When you look at it, he wasn't fast enough to pass Piastri, but he closed to within about 1.5 seconds of Piastri, just outside of DRS range. And then even afterwards, Oscar couldn't really get close to him. I think Lando put it down, and he was really comfortable, especially once it got dry. But at one point, you got to feel sorry for Oscar. Before that safety car issue, he had just over a 15-second lead. And then it all went away. But another British Grand Prix winner. He's the 13th British Grand Prix winner, after people like Jim Clark, Nigel Mansell, James Hunt, Lewis Hamilton, David Coulthard, Damon Hill, Johnny Herbert, to name a few. Lando Norris as well is now up there with it. Sadly, no Jenson Button. That always upset me. So this is the top 10. First, Lando Norris. Well done. Oscar Piastri. Yeah, he was, let's be honest, he looked absolutely miserable, like you took an ice cream away from a toddler. But yeah, third was Nico Hulkenberg, fourth was Lewis Hamilton, fifth Max Verstappen, sixth Pierre Gasly, seventh Lance Stroll, eighth Alex Albon, 9th, Fernando Alonso. 10th, George Russell. And here is the gap. So Norris ended up winning it by 6.8. Hulkenberg then 34.7 seconds back. Lewis Hamilton just couldn't close up. What happened there, we'll talk about it in a sec. But 5th was Max Verstappen. Yeah, he recovered fairly well, actually, compared to what happened. We'll get into that. Gasly P6. Stroll, who was 3rd at one point, finished P7. Well done to him. 8th, Alex Albon. 9th, Fernando Alonso. And 10th, George Russell. Now, if we want it, before we get into the McLaren stuff, with Behrman 11th, Sainz 12th, 13th, Ocon, 14th, Leclerc, Tsunoda a lap down. Retirements for Antonelli, Hadjar, Bortoletto, Lawson, Colapinto. All of them ended up having accidents. The innocent one, I think, out of all of that, really, maybe Colapinto at the beginning of the race, but also Antonelli, who basically got rammed from behind by Isaac Hadjar. But to be fair to Isaac Hadjar, you couldn't really see what was going on. It was all that spray. So a double podium for McLaren. Lando's absolutely happy in spite of his injury. Oscar, I mean, yeah, he looks about the same there, really, as he did on the podium, if I'm honest. He looked absolutely miserable. So let's get into why Oscar looked absolutely miserable. And it was here, under the safety car. What happened? Well, he braked really hard. They decided he was driving erratically. Kind of similar to George Russell, but more extreme. Okay? So, let's have a look, shall we? So there he is. And then he brakes suddenly behind the safety car, and Max Verstappen's like, what is going on? What? As you can see here, he brakes. This was when the safety car was coming in. Safety car lights are off, as you can see, and Max Verstappen brakes really suddenly. Yeah, we should be able to see on board in a bit. There we go. So here's Max Verstappen's on board. You'll suddenly see him. You'll suddenly see Oscar brake quite suddenly. You can just about see the lights. And there we go. I mean, Verstappen, to be fair, had to avoid him. Was it erratic? Yes, it was. But I think Verstappen probably thought, oh, he's gone. He's gone. Now, in relation to that, you are only allowed to go. Once you decide to go onto the safety car, you can't stop and start. And I guess it's felt that's what the steward said. Now, I think a 10-second penalty is quite harsh, given the fact that, once again, when you ram a driver on purpose, you again get a 10-second penalty. And apparently 3 championship points. I think Oscar got 2, but we'll get into the document in a bit. But yeah, so that was fair enough. In hindsight, kind of inexcusable, especially particularly when you look at that footage. Now, Piastri did get that 10-second penalty, but this is what he said afterwards. So he got the 10-second. He came out behind Lando Norris. What on earth was Oscar Piastri thinking with this radio call? I just don't understand it. It was just weird. Listen to this. He says, I don't think the penalty before was very fair. Fair enough. I think we should swap back and race. Okay, I mean,
the penalty before was very fair. I mean, I know that's a big question, but if you don't think it was fair either, I think we should swap back
and
what?
Race. A desperate radio message from a desperate man. Surely.
Was very fair. I mean, I know that's a big question, but if you don't think it was fair either, I think we should swap back and race.
So just one more time. I don't think the penalty before was very fair. I think we should swap back and race. Basically, if you don't think it's fair as well, talking to his engineer, we should swap back and race, meaning he wants Lando Norris to give up the lead and then race because of an unfair penalty. I've never, for the life of me, heard this before.
I don't think the penalty before was very fair. I mean, I know that's a big question, but if you don't think it was fair either, I think we should swap back and race.
Yeah, that was just weird. I didn't understand that. This was him during the media. After he'd won, not won, sorry, after he finished
Oscar,
second.
I can imagine the emotions are very high, and we always say that you're very level-headed, but I've never seen you quite so upset about this.
And I think he was when you heard the radio. Yes, it wasn't at the same time, but that's very shortly afterwards when we saw his mistake when he almost went off. This is the first time ever we have seen Oscar Piastri slightly rattled. And that included, and it came back to the podium celebrations and the interview. He's normally the Iceman. He clearly wasn't happy. Has Lando Norris finally got to him? Perhaps. I mean, we know he's good. We know on his day, yes, he can beat Lando Norris as much as Lando Norris can beat Oscar Piastri. What I wonder, though, is when we look back at the British Grand Prix, is this the moment that Lando started taking control of the championship? Only time will tell. Or is this the moment that Oscar Piastri was like, right, I'm angry now, and then we don't see Lando win a race again, kind of like what Max did when Perez won at Baku in 2020. I think it was 2023.
quite so upset about the situation you find yourself in.
Yeah, I'm not going to say much. I'll get myself in trouble. So,
well
done to Nico. I think that's the highlight of the day. So,
I mean, Nico, what's interesting, and the reason why I say he's moody, he doesn't even congratulate his teammate.
Yeah, I'll leave it there.
You obviously had a reasonably good start against Max. Made a lovely move, and it looked like you had good.
Look at his face
throughout the race.
He's livid.
And it was the one incident that obviously
he's
you're not going to want to
absolutely
talk about.
angry.
Mention it here on the back straight, obviously getting the gap to the safety car.
Yeah, I mean, apparently you can't brake behind the safety car anymore. I mean, I did it for 5 laps before that, and again, I'm not going to say too.
No, he did do it laps before that, but when they actually look back at it, it was nothing like the braking he did there. So some people may think Max is crying about it, that's why he got a penalty, perhaps. I was surprised that George Russell maybe didn't get some kind of penalty looking in his mirrors in Canada, but there we go. Consistency, as you know, is a massive problem that I have, and we have here, and I'm not the only person, massive F1 fan, that has an issue with the consistency of the stewards. It's ridiculous.
Too much, so I'll get myself in trouble. But
I'll get myself in trouble. Thanks to the crowd. Yeah, no, not one mention of Lando, so we know he's annoyed. He's rattled. The first time we've seen Oscar Piastri rattled. Here is the official document, which I'll read. Obviously, car driver 81, Oscar Piastri, time 15:49, 49 minutes after the race start. Session race, erratic braking on the straight before turn 15, Stowe, when the safety car lights were extinguished. Okay. And there was a breach of Article 55.15 of the FIA Sporting Code Regulations, Appendix H, and decision, a 10-second time penalty, and 2 penalty points. He now has a total of 6. And then what they've said is the stewards reviewed, obviously, positioning, marshal system data, telemetry, team radio, and in-car evidence. When the clerk of the court had declared that the safety car was coming in that lap, and the lights were extinguished, car 81 suddenly braked hard. And they're talking 59.2 psi of brake pressure. Now, when you look back at George, in that Canada incident, it was about 30, so it's double. And reduced speed in the middle of the straight between T14 and T15, basically hang a straight before Stowe. And he reduced speed from 218 kilometers per hour to 52, resulting in car 1 having to take evasive action to avoid a collision. I mean, he accelerated quite hard as well, to the point, as I mentioned, Max Verstappen must have thought, oh, okay, we're going. Oh, no, we're not, suddenly. And then car 1 unavoidably overtaking car 81 in a position which he gave back. So I initially thought, oh my gosh, Max Verstappen's overtaking Piastri. That's really naughty. And when it came up, I thought, Max Verstappen's getting that penalty. Until I saw the replay, I was like, no way. No way Max is getting a penalty for that. So Article 55.15 of the Sporting Code required car 81 to proceed at a pace which involved no erratic braking nor any other manoeuvre which is likely to endanger other drivers from the point at which the lights on the safety car are turned off. Now, what car 81 did was clearly in breach of this article, it says. In accordance with the penalty guidelines, we imposed a 10-second time penalty to car 81. Competitors are reminded that they have the right to appeal certain decisions of the stewards in accordance with Article 15 of the FIA International Sporting Code and Chapter 4 of the FIA Judicial and Disciplinary Rules, where within applicable time limits. And it just goes on, yeah. There's the Antonio Liuzzi, former Red Bull driver. I'm sure people are going to mention that. But there we go. But it caused Verstappen to do this, didn't it? Whoops. That's all I can say is, whoops a daisy, Max Verstappen. Yeah. I mean, what happened? The safety car went. I don't think this caused Verstappen, really. I know people are going to may suggest it, that this is the Stowe's here, and then, you know, Max accelerated too early, lost the rear and just spun. Remember, he had a lower downforce set up on his vehicle, so naturally he was going to have potentially more of an issue heating up those tyres, and then he spun, and then he lost quite a few positions. And he to be fair to him, he did quite well to not get out of the wall. Now, where people have suggested that may have been an issue for Max is it stopped Max warming up the tyres properly in relation to what Oscar Piastri was doing. I don't really think that happened. It's kind of like clutching at straws if Max just made a mistake. Showed us he's human, but there we go. So, Max said about the incident, it happened to me a few times now, that people do it in front of me. I saw the race, he got a 10-second penalty for it. That is also very, very extreme. I think so too. 10 seconds, but oh well, I don't make the rules. Had it been 5, he may have won the race. Although it would have been very close between him and Lando Norris. He would have got out in front, I think, of the pit stops when they pitted for dries towards the end of the race because it was raining. And then he would have been ahead. It would have been a case of Lando trying to pass him. Yeah, who knows? Who knows what would have happened then? So let's talk about the first podium. The first podium for Nico Hulkenberg for the Stake F1 team. Absolutely fantastic. It's been, what, I think 239 races? It's been something crazy. He's been the driver with the most points, you know, without a podium. And he's had that for years. To the point where it's almost becoming a meme. The fact that Nico Hulkenberg is going to retire without ever finishing on the podium. So I am so glad that that's not now the case, which is really good. Here we go. Here's a few shots of Nico and the trophy. I'm not sure whether that's the Lego one. Yeah, I think it is. They have a beautiful. To be fair, it's quite a nice Lego trophy with the champagne. Oh, it's just brilliant. Congratulations, Nico Hulkenberg. Congratulations. And this is the Sauber team
I'm thinking their first
celebrating. I mean, look at it.
Yeah, correct.
Good show.
Yep.
So it took 22 races for them to get off the board last year, and now they've got loads of points.
Wow.
Both drivers are there.
So there we go. I heard they got 22 races last year for them to get off the board. Now they've got a nice hunk of points, haven't they? And what I thought was funny as well, this was Lando Norris bringing in Nico's helmet because he didn't realise you had to. Bring it. There we go. What do you need it for? Ah, look at you, Lando. There we go. How nice is Lando? That's so sweet. So Nico Hulkenberg is now, this is awkward, Nico Hulkenberg has now scored more points than Max Verstappen over the last 4 races. The Dutchman was the first driver to congratulate him on the podium today, though. So Max, well done. Classy move, but he has scored more points than you over the few races. And talking about scoring points, well, P4 for Lewis Hamilton, not too bad. In the end, you did okay. It wasn't the podium we wish, but yeah, I mean, he was looking threatening for the podium all race. At one point, it was Lance Stroll was looking like he could get that podium. Now, what happened is Hamilton was stuck behind Gasly for a while, past Gasly, past Lance Stroll. But the problem was Hulkenberg had passed Lance Stroll a few laps before, and he was catching Hulkenberg. At one point, he was within a second. He just couldn't get by him, and then it was towards the end. It was getting near the end of the race. It was drying up. It wasn't quite dry yet. It looked like within a second, he ended up dropping about 2.5 because his intermediate tyres started to go off. That's what it appeared. So he's dropping back, which may explain why the lap before it was the best lap to do it, so to speak. As in the lap he went on the dry tyres. He chose the soft tyres, which I thought were the best ones, simply because, yes, the softer tyres, they're going to wear quicker, but they are the fastest, but they also heat up the quickest, and you still had a very damp track at the time, where to the point where if you went offline, you're going to go off, and that's exactly what Hamilton did coming out of the pits, along with George Russell, I think Fernando Alonso, potentially, nearly everyone went off there when they came out of the pits. Had he done it the next lap, the gap probably would have been about 2.5-3 seconds, which he potentially would have been able to hunt down. Now, he got that gap down to about 5 seconds. He must have made a mistake and it went up to 7, but then he kept on being faster and faster, doing fastest laps, etc. Sadly, Hamilton couldn't get it down, because I feel like on the dry tyres, had he got within that DRS range, Hulkenberg would have been in trouble. But Hulkenberg, he absorbed all that pressure from a 7-time champion, a 9-time British Grand Prix Silverstone winner, and yeah, well done, Nico Hulkenberg. In terms of Hamilton, P4, I think he's a bit disappointed. This was the radio call for Hamilton. Here we go. Any second now.
Mate, that was pretty bad overall. So much opportunity today that was missed. Yeah. Thank you. No, continue to push. And thanks to this mega crowd here. Sorry I couldn't bring it home.
He sounds really disappointed, doesn't he? I mean, it would have been lovely for a first Ferrari podium, but you can't be annoyed for Nico Hulkenberg. Maybe if they gave Piastri a 30-second penalty. Well, no, you would need more than that, actually, wouldn't you, I think? But yeah, there we go. A drive-through penalty, perhaps. But Charles Leclerc was also one that didn't do particularly well. And he said the only positive point is Lewis's performance. At least I'll be able to observe him to try and understand where I went wrong. Wow, that's like Lando Norris negative talking about P14. Yeah, not particularly good for Ferrari. P6 and DNF for Pierre Gasly. Pierre Gasly was doing really well. Yeah, he qualified P10, didn't he? And I think to get P6 is a fantastic result for the Alpine team. Now on to Red Bull. As we know, Max Verstappen was on pole, had that amazing lap yesterday. Kept the lead in spite of a small challenge from Piastri into the first corner. And then as it started to dry out a bit, you could see Max... You could see Max struggling on his tyres, particularly coming out, I think, of Chapel, going onto the hanger straight, who was sliding. Obviously, Piastri knew that. Then the safety car came out. Then the safety car came back in again. And again, Max got a tiny bit of a lead, but then he was struggling. Again, it was drying out with his interns, and that's how Piastri ended up passing him, because he struggled so much. I think they had DRS at that point, and Piastri passed him down hanger straight, going into Stowe, that same straight that would have gave him essentially a 10-second penalty many laps later. And Yuki Tsunoda got a penalty by absolutely boinking Ollie Bevan. Although when you look at it, I felt that was quite harsh. A bit like the Piastri penalty. A penalty, yes. 10-second penalty? I don't know. I think that was harsh. Now, talking about the Mercedes, P10, DNF for Kimi, thanks to Hadjar. Now, George Russell, again, like Hamilton, he could have had at least a P3 result out of this, but he pitted for slicks far too soon. He started on... Well, not started, but he pitted early for slick tyres near the beginning of the race. And at the end of the race, he put on slick tyres a good, I think, 2 or 3 laps too soon. So by the time he was fast, he didn't really make much time up. And I think he's going to be really disappointed with P10. You just saw Toto's face as well. Toto Wolff. He looked really upset. Once again, kind of like you took some ice cream away from a toddler. So Stroll P7, Alonso of the Fernando variety in P9. Yeah. Sad times. Sad times for people that don't like Lance Stroll, because humble pie needs to be eaten. He was P3 for quite a while. When he was going on, he basically pitted twice, but he pitted for soft tyres before it started to rain heavily again. And he was the fastest man on the track, making up loads of places. He did really, really well. And he was P3, and I thought, we're going to see the safety car come out the minute the second Lance Stroll put on those soft tyres. I was convinced the safety car was coming out again because of Lance Stroll. It didn't. So well done to Lance Stroll. P9 for Alonso, fairly solid as well. I think at some point, in one of the radio calls, he kind of intimated he was a bit miffed as to how Lance was so far ahead, but there we go. Again, a really positive race for Williams. I think it needed a bit of a chaotic race for them to get points. So sadly, Sainz didn't, but Albon did. Once again, showing his absolute class, in spite of Charles Leclerc, playing Williams pinball, barging them out of the way. But this was James Vowles on the weekend, which is not too bad.
First and foremost, congratulations to Sauber and to Nico.
I think that's so classy.
Extraordinary result for them today, and they earned it relative to others in these difficult conditions.
Absolutely.
For us, my reflection is the following. We didn't expect it to be as wet as it was for that duration of race.
I don't think anyone did, James.
Where the car was really set up in terms of downforce and otherwise was more for a dry race. And you could see that in those interconditions, and even when it was drying, we were poor. We were overtaken by Aston Martin initially and dropped back many seconds relative to other cars. But right at the end of the race, Alex was flying and able to regain that position to fight back for P8. Just showing you that swing and balance of where we...
And the swing and balance happened a lot with a lot of drive. The Lando Norris, he fell back, then he started to be really good. Lewis Hamilton, when it was really wet, was really struggling. When it started to dry out, you kind of saw that Ferrari pace, because we knew from the practice sessions and qualifying, I know both Ferraris messed up towards that last sector, how fast they were. So the cars, how fast they were, simply changed throughout the race, which I thought was interesting.
Where we were in terms of performance. We also didn't get it right on that switch to the second new Inter, and that's very much where Sauber did a great job.
It was perfect.
Done to preempt that condition.
So there we go. So I mean, moving on. DNF for Racing Bulls, an absolutely horrible race for both of them. Lawson just crashing out, and so did Hadjar. Both their faults. I think Hadjar slightly less. It's going to be interesting. Will Hadjar get a penalty for that? Because they did say this is going to be investigated after the race. And this is the driver standings then. So Oscar Piastri after the British Grand Prix on 234. Lando Norris on 226. 8 points. Verstappen on 165. Is championship over for him? Russell 147. Leclerc on 119. Hamilton's caught up a bit from Leclerc on 103. Then we've got Antonelli on 63. Albon, best of the rest still, on 36. But it's Nico Hulkenberg that jumps into the top 10. Ninth now on 37. That's amazing. Can he even be caught by the others? Because Esteban Ocon on 23. And this is some of the race pace data from the from the British Grand Prix. These are all the tyre strategies. As you can see, most people were into either medium or some kind of slick, etc. What's interesting is Hamilton was in a used soft, along with Leclerc. Alonso was in a used medium, as you can probably see there, which I think is fairly interesting. So, in relation to, let's just make that a bit. Go. So, in relation to anything else, Hulkenberg enters medium. So, yeah, so most people, it was Russell that started, was very quickly on the slick tyres, along with the Leclerc, Hadjar, and Bortoletti. So, Russell, yeah, there we go. So, that is the British Grand Prix for you. If you made it to the end, please, if you can, give us a subscribe. That would be absolutely amazing. If you're already subscribed, you just watching this is more than enough for us. But this is about congratulations to Nico Hulkenberg on that podium. But congratulations to Lando Norris, in spite of his little injury, whose dream has come true. We'll speak to you soon. Thank you very much. Stay safe.